Good Monday morning and welcome to Kramer's Corner with daily technical updates. 4th of November it is. And just a quick look to begin with at Maersk B, the Danish container shipping company, one of the biggest in the world, that has bounced strongly towards the end of last week. And key resistance here, 11,470, that should be observed. We are in a positive sentiment. RSI closed back above 60 threshold, indicating which we could see a higher push, but it could take a little bit of time. It's a fairly strong resistance. However, if it does break above that level, then there's potential up to 11,980, maybe even higher. Try to close this gap here. The share price is above the cloud area, which is normally a fairly strong signal, combined with the RSI above 60 threshold. However, on the weekly chart, we can see we are still in this falling channel here, falling trend, but it has bounced fairly strongly. So if it can break above the upper falling trend line there, then there could be potential up to that area here, which we talked about, the gap area. So keep an eye on that. If it slides back and back below the 10,500, is probably not materializing this bullish push. On the US indices, and let's just have a look at on the daily chart, because that is actually quite interesting what is developing at the moment. We have the S&P 500 actually formed kind of a a wedge-like pattern, a rising wedge-like pattern that it broke bearish out of Thursday, bounced a little bit Friday. If it breaks below 5,674, well, then we can see a much larger correction lower. And what you normally do with rising wedges is that you can do or add a Fibonacci retracement level to it, and you see these levels here, and normally you will say, well, it should correct possibly down to around the 61.8, which is coincidentally also a strong support area just around 5,400. So let's see here, 5,674 should be observed to begin with. We are bouncing a little bit pre-market, so let's see how it will develop. Same picture on the, more or less same picture on the Nasdaq 100 actually, and here we can also add the Fibonacci to it and say, okay, that is just as a kind of a guideline. You can see also the 61.8 is down here, where we have some support area, like where it was sold off and then bounced back. So 18,654. I'm not quite sure we'll get all the way down there. I want to see it break below 19,000 first, 19,622. We have some fairly strong support. It could dip down to the 38.2 retracement at 19,391. Picture is a little bit different on the Dow Jones index, where it has formed this where it's broken below the minor support at 41,831, but there's some support here at 41,563. However, if the other patterns and development are really playing out, well, then we could see a break lower. We can add a rising trend line here, and you can see, yeah, it spiked below here, but that's not that important. So we do have a little bit of a trend break or trend reversal. If we add here, you can argue, well, we also have a kind of a rising wedge. It's not the best one, because ideally we should have this one up higher there. So it is a little bit uncertain what is this actually a rising wedge, but it does look like a little bit also Dow Jones, but it's not as clear as on the other US indices. On the European markets, well, we had the sell-off late last week, a little bit bounce on Friday from the 4,800 on the EUROSTOXX 50. If it can get back above 49.08, well, then there could be a little bit further bounce towards 5,000 in it. But I think we are under pressure. If it takes out 4,800, well, then we're looking at a 47.32 support area and possibly lower. We are a little bit higher here pre-market at bouncing a little bit, but it's not that strong. Can easily be reversed. The The DAX index has been trading in this rising channel-like pattern here, broke below the rising trend line here mid last week, took out first support, but bounced from the 19,000 level just above the 55 moving average. It could come under pressure this week. If it does break below, and I think a close is probably not needed, but it will be it will strengthen the bearish move towards 18,747, 18,590 in this range here, where we also have the 100 moving average coming up, giving some support. If it's that's taking out, well, then we're looking at 18,230. So for now we are in a bearish move. There was divergence on the RSI indicating uptrend exhaustion and could continue pre-market more or less unchanged. The Amsterdam index bounced from minor support here at 873, but we talked about this support area here, or support level here, for quite some time. Bounced a little bit back above the 878. If it takes out 873 and especially takes out the lows there from last week at 870, well, then expect a sell-off down to around 850 level. On the CAC index, bounced also from support 7,341, just above the 7,300. So we have a little bit of strong support here. However, look at this. We have the RSI in negative sentiment indicating likely lower levels. But we could see a test of the 74.64. It is now a resistance level, and pre-market we are just below 7,400. And finally, on the Swiss market bounced from 11,750. It was not a support I identified until just recently, but it seems likely that is a support level. Bounced fairly strongly, but we are in a bearish trend with lower lows and lower highs and negative sentiment on the RSI. And I think we will see, at least to begin the week, with a little bit of weakness, and if it moves back below 11,875, the 11,750 could come under pressure. Euro dollar has bounced, well, actually quite volatile. Friday sell-off, and now this morning we are pushing higher again. We are in this bouncing mode, and I think we could see it up to around the 38.2 retracement of this downtrend here at 109.35, possibly spiking up to 109.50. If it takes out 109.50, well, then there's potential up to 110. Taking out the lows from last week, and I will use that as a guide, at 108.30, well, then expect a downtrend to resume with lower levels, and probably taking out these lows here around 107.60. Euro sterling, after a massive move, Wednesday and Thursday last week, we had a little bit of a sell-off, got hit by a correction last week, back below the 84 level, just dancing around the 38.2 retracement. We could see a correction down, dipping down to the 61 at 83.55, but short term we are now in a bullish sentiment, but we're still below the cloud area here, and that we could see some fighting going on in this area here between 83.70 and up to 84.50. Looking at the bigger picture really, and just very quickly looking at the weekly chart, we can see while we are still in a bearish trend on the medium term, it does look like we had a downtrend exhaustion. We had a little bit of a bottom and reversal pattern here. So if we move back above the 84.50, well, then we could see a push up to 85 and possibly even higher. On cable, sterling dollar, dancing around this rising trend line here, dip below, now we are back above, and we could see a push towards the 131 if it can take out the top of, or the peak of this candle there at 130.45, then I think we'll see a test of 131. If it then closes above 131, well, then there's potential higher for sterling dollar towards 132 and possibly even higher. But it is a little bit up in the air and indecisive at the moment. If it moves back below the rising trend line, well, the bearish sentiment, the bearish trend could resume towards 128. Yen pairs, dollar yen, still holding on, dipping a little bit below, but still holding on above 151.85 support. If it takes it once again out and we move below the 200 moving average, we could see a break of this rising trend line here. It is not the strongest anyway, and a push down to 149.40 level, which is also quite close to the 38.2 retracement. We are still in a bullish trend, however, and we will remain so until we move back below 149. So I think we could see a test of it and then a bounce. But it is stressed a little bit, and there's some strong resistance here at 154. It needs to break above. If it does that, well, then there's a possibility to 155.25, possibly higher. On the Euro yen is still in a bullish trend, positive sentiment, no divergence, indicating likely higher levels, and I think it will start pushing higher again or continue to push higher again this week towards 167.50, 168 level. Support here at 164 that should be observed. Aussie yen, still a little bit indecisive around this slightly rising trend line. I think I actually deleted and say, well, my range is 99 to 101.75. It's actually quite big range for this pair, but that's what it is. It seems very indecisive. It needs to break out from that until I actually will make up my mind of the direction, bullish or bearish. Sterling yen had sell off here Thursday, bounced a little bit Friday from the 196, and you can see how key support that is. I mean, it's not unusual. You see it's spiking below, but it actually did close above, and then it has started also the week here just in the middle of the range. So 196, and let's actually look at the spike below at 195.35. That is, if it takes out that, expect a move down to 193.30, 193.50 level, maybe even down to 191.80, 75 level. Could resume uptrend. There's no divergence on the RSI, and it is in a positive sentiment. So if it moves up towards this 199.5, towards 200, expect a break up to 202, possibly higher. Aussie dollar, well, hovering around the 65 area here, 65.50 up to 66. Can't really make its mind up, but it comes after this strong bearish trend here. So what I will say to myself, okay, this is what I need to keep an eye on. If it takes out the lows here at 65.35, well, then we are looking at 64.70, possibly lower. If it takes out 66.5, around 66.20, well, and especially moving above 66.40, then I think we'll see a correction higher towards 67.25. We can try to see if the Fibonacci can help us a little bit and say, okay, if it does buy, well, then we're looking above 66.90 in this range here, and there's some resistance up here at 67.2025. So a little bit indecisive. Sometimes we have to stay on the sideline and wait a little bit for some direction. Sometimes the technical picture is not that clear. On the dollar Canada, well, very stretched uptrend, but there is no divergence as I can see it here. We still have the RSI at 76.17. Well, there's no divergence, indicating we could see a push higher, but be aware it could also be hit by a correction. It is fairly stretched at the moment, and if we're looking at the weekly, we can also see what's actually going on the bigger picture. We are up here really stretched, where we usually turn around in this area here between 139.50 and just below 140. So quite stretched. We could still see it spiking a little bit higher, but that could also be. And you see it past few days, last week actually, we've seen it just moving a bit higher all the time, pushing a little bit, but it getting more and more stretched. If it starts taking out 138.75, we could see a correction down to around 138. 138. And I added two Fibonacci levels. I added from the last leg up here, that's the blue one, and from the red here, that is the red ones. And that is to indicate, well, if it really gets going with a larger correction and sell off below 138.25, well, then we could move down to around the key strong support area down in this area here at 137.50. But we're not there yet. But just saying, this was it has been a very strong move. So keep an eye on these levels there. The sterling Canada caught in this range here between 181.50 and 178.30. That needs to be observed. If it takes out 178.30, well, then there's potential down to 176.80. Euro Swiss, well, after bouncing from 93.33 level here, was a stronger support than anticipated. I actually expected to dip down to 93. Now we are back above or trading around the upper falling trend line here. Spiked above, can't really make its mind up what will it do. The key will be the RSI. If RSI can get back above 60 threshold, and that will require a little bit more upside to the Euro Swiss, then the 95 resistance could be taken out, and there's possibly move higher. So we are moving in this descending triangle-like pattern here. You can also argue it's a bit of a triangle-like pattern, so it's not the best looking one, but there is some, you can see here, slightly rising trend line. So we have this triangle-like pattern developing at the moment, and sometimes it can be a little bit frustrating which way it's going to break out. Dollar Swiss has a lot of volatility towards late last week around these level here, around 86.70, which was the 786 retracement of this downtrend here. I had added these two horizontal, and that is my breakout area. If it breaks out 87.12 to the upside, around that I would say 87.15 just to make sure, then I am quite sure that we will, or feel confident, we will take out the resistance here at 87.50 and possibly higher towards 88.25. If it takes out 86.30, I have subtracted a little bit to the 86.33, then we could see a sell-off down to around 85.30, 85.20 level. And finally, the dollar index also likely to be hit by a correction. Tested the 103.80 support, but now we are back below it, and I think we could see it dropping lower towards 103, 102.74 here in the coming days. If it closes back above 103.80, then I will wait and see a little bit to see what's gonna unfold. If it takes out the Friday peak at 104.27, well, then we could see another push towards resistance at 104.85. Gold uptrend has been stretched for quite some time, as you can see here, indicated by the divergence on the RSI. The RSI values have been declining, market moved higher, and now we are trading just above the 38.2 retracement of the last leg up there at 2,718. But I would say if we get boost below 27.08, well, then we could see a correction down to around 26.44, 43 level, which is the 786 retracement. Key strong support around 2600, but we are still in a bullish trend. It hasn't been broken. It will be broken if we move below 2700. So fairly stretched, but we have been in that stretch mode for quite some time. What is not that stretched is silver. Testing the minor support here at 32.25 level. No divergence on the RSI, still in a positive sentiment, indicating we should see higher levels on the silver. But it's also a very volatile metals to trade, so keep an eye on that. 32.25. If it takes out that, well, then suddenly we could see it down back to around the 31 level here. We're moving on to the other metals. Platinum has corrected to the 61.8 retracement at 987.5. I think it will bounce here, positive sentiment, no divergence on the RSI, is indicating it should resume uptrend. Palladium, more or less the same picture really, almost down to the 61.8 retracement and the 1098. Could dip a little bit low. We have some support here, but also positive sentiment on the RSI. If RSI moves back above 60 threshold, expect the Palladium to resume uptrend towards previous peaks. And copper, finally some movements in copper after about 2 weeks of a very tight range trading here around the 430, 435 level. If it takes out 445.70, expect buyers coming back in and could lift the copper back up to 470, 470, maybe even higher. Crude oil, fairly strong bounce after testing the trend line here on the WTI, but it really requires to close above 72.34 for uptrend towards 75, 77 level. Otherwise, if it gets rejected, and it already got rejected here at the 55 moving average, if it gets rejected and slight lower, expect downtrend to resume. And we are still in a downtrend despite this bounce here. 76.54 on the Brent to be observed. It has to close above that for bullish trend. Very quickly on the Nat Gas. Nat Gas, here we have the TTF gas that bounced from the 38 level, and I think it will see a resuming uptrend. There's no divergence on the RSI, so it's still in a positive sentiment. Didn't close below 40 threshold, so it is indicating it could bounce once again towards the 40 plus level. On the Henry Hub natural gas, and it is still drawing this a triangle-like pattern on the weekly chart, as we can see here, and it really needs to break out for any direction. I think we will see a breakout to the upside. That is at least what the weekly RSI is telling me, but I need it to be confirmed. US 10-year Treasury yields moved higher Friday, and is setting back a little bit today. Seems to be trading in this very strong bullish move here. I have now added a trend line. It's not the strongest one, it's just a guideline to see where we're moving to. There is no divergence on the RSI, indicating likely higher levels on the yields, 10-year yields here, and there is potential up to around 447, around that 450. We could see it spike out there. However, if it takes out 419, expect a correction down to 414, maybe 410, but for now fairly strong despite a little bit setback this early morning. On the 2-year yields, well, this morning it tested support at 406 and has bounced, and there's potential now up to 428, 437 in this region here, where we have a little bit resistance, but we could see it pushing higher. If it takes out the lows from this morning here at 404, well, then we could see it sliding back to this area here just below 4%. On the EuroBund future, it's not the yields we're talking about, it's the EuroBund future. We have this double top pattern here that is unfolding, and if it moves back below here, and it seems like it's doing that, we are in a bearish trend. 131.60 there, if we could put, there is potential down to around 130 and a half, 130 and a quarter. And finally, let's just have a look at UK Gilts that has been sold off heavily last week, and its worries could continue. Here the weekly chart after breaking below 95.36, there's potential down to around a 91 level. All right, that's all for today. Have a nice day, and talk to you again tomorrow. There will be an update out on the Magnificent 7 here a little bit later this morning.